What's up, Banger TV? Daniel Dekay here, doing something a little different today. When the opportunity to review the new BEWITCHER record came across my desk, I thought, well, I just have been reviewing their records on Banger TV forever, so let's try something a little more unique. So instead of just hearing me talk about how much I love the snare sound or how I thought the guitar tone was massive, let's get the guys behind all of that in the same room together for a little roundtable chat. Today, I'm joined by the dudes from BEWITCHER, Eris, Andy, and Matt, as well as the producer of BEWITCHER's new record, Spell Shock, Lars Frederiksen. What is up, my dudes, my dogs?
What's going on?
What's going on?
Hell yeah.
I think kind of just want to right off the top acknowledge that when I say Lars Frederiksen, a lot of people would immediately associate, obviously of Rancid fame and one of our punk rock gods that we all grew up listening to and worshiping. You're the man. People know you've produced your own records. People know you've produced some other really cool hardcore and punk rock shit, but not a lot of people know that you have a deep love affair with heavy metal. So I would love for you to just give me some of your background on, what metal is to you and kind of the sounds that you're into, because I know you're made of steel, and I know it, man.
Much respect. Well, I mean, I think growing up in the Bay Area, we had, the thrash metal that came out of here. I mean, it was started here. It's in a lot of the punk rock that we all love today, kind of came out of the Bay Area. So I feel like the Bay Area has long roots with this kind of sort of aggressive, music, whether it's thrash, metal, punk, hip hop, whatever. If it's street music, I think really good stuff comes from this area. And I feel that's because the Bay Area up until recently was a very working class, blue collar, place to grow up. And it was like that for a very, very long time. And I think that if you look back in history, the places like Birmingham in England or Detroit, always had these crazy good music scenes. And I think it's because of the soul of those areas. And for me, growing up and having such, so many different musical things to kind of go to. So there was, if it was hip hop, like, E40, Too Short, you know what I mean? Or thrash, you had Exodus and Testament, and even Metallica, had to come up here before they got good. So, I mean, that's not an understatement. That's just the truth. But I feel like being exposed to all that. And then in the 80s, when thrash stuff and the punk stuff started, the whole crossover thing, the thrash metal was always the thing that I was always more attracted to. Black metal later on in the 90s, when I started kind of getting hip to bands like Mayhem and Emperor and stuff like that. To me, it just reminded me of like punk rock, even, crazier, if that makes sense.
And the speed element naturally, if you're into thrash metal drumming, it really just is punk rock drumming, just presented in a different manner.
Well, there's no punk rock if there's no Motorhead, and it's and there's no thrash metal unless there's Motorhead. And the punks claimed Motorhead just as much as the thrash or the metal kids claimed them. And it was probably the one place in all of the world back then where punks and metalheads would come together and not fight and beat the shit out of each other. So, and they had that mutually in common.
BEWITCHER dudes, prior to working with Lars on this record, what did you guys know about him? Did you have any idea of the heavy metal pedigree that he had and whatnot? Had you guys ever crossed paths, or was this a brand new meeting for everyone?
We actually crossed paths in 2019, right before the pandemic started, actually. We played a show in Oakland at Eli's, and Lars was there. We played with Matt Freeman's other band, Charger. It was very brief, and it was just kind of like, hey, what's up? Nice to meet you, kind of thing. And, Lars introduced himself, said he was a fan, and we were obviously very like, holy fuck. And that was kind of it until later on when the label, kind of came up with this concept to have him jump in and produce.
I grew up punk rock, listening to punk rock, and I told Lars I ran up on him in a field and at a Warped Tour when I was 18 to shake his hand. He didn't remember. It's made me a little sad. But, yeah, I knew he was a punk rock guy, and BEWITCHER has a little bit of a punk rock vein going through it, so it kind of just made sense once his name.
I thought you were running up on me trying to give me one of your $5 handies, and that's what.
It cost $20 for you, bro. $20.
The Warped Tour upcharge.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Who comes up with the concept of having Lars work on the record? What do those early conversations sound like? Was anyone else considered? Kind of give me the background on that.
As far as the story that we were told, basically, it was our A&R guy at Century Media and our manager kind of batting it back and forth. Then our manager kind of came to us and said, what do you guys think about this? And I think our immediate response was kind of like, how is this going to be? How's this going to work? But then when we started thinking about it, I know for myself, when it came to making this record, I wanted to lean into those punk influences that Eris was just talking about. And I actually started to make a lot of sense to join forces with Lars. And once we started having those conversations, the metal pedigree came out. The plan to make a real true heavy metal record started coming together, and those conversations happened early on and came together really well.
Andy, there was a pretty interesting quote floating around related to this album. Spell Shock is the product of playing 130 shows in a row and then going straight into writing and recording. True. You guys did a shitload of shows on Kingdom. You guys toured the shit out of it and played everywhere. I think I probably saw you a dozen times on that Eternal album cycle. Lars, was it obvious when they stepped into the studio that this was a band who had just spent the better chunk of the last couple of years playing 130 shows together?
This is a band's band. I mean, this reminds me, just the way that they communicate and get in there, it reminded me, I could do this like a Rancid record. They all sort of had that synchronicity, like they'd been playing together for 30 years, And that's one of the things that I think that really attracted me towards them is that, I feel like we all wanted to make this really like what they can do live, bring that to the studio and make it raw and bring those elements in it. But yeah, I mean, they're like a band's band. There's no gimmicks. They were in there recording with each other.
When you guys come into the studio on day one, how complete are these songs and how different are those songs that you walked in with day one compared to the versions we got on the final product?
We did a lot of trimming of fat like ahead of time. The demo process was pretty extensive because we've been getting better at that over the years. We started off as a demo band, and so we've been kind of refining that process for the last 10 years. So we had it pretty fleshed out, but of course there was a lot of room for changes and improvements once we got in there.
The real challenge was us being able to open our minds to having another person in the room, giving ideas and giving suggestions and having us be open to it and changing things around. That was really, we were a little apprehensive about that, but once we got in the room with Lars, it was just, everything came really natural and it was easy.
You talked about when you guys got together that after the initial conversations, it became obvious that this was going to be a relationship that was going to work. I'm curious to know as to what some of those reference records were, sonically, that when you guys got together, you're like, we want this, this, and this. What was kind of the mutually agreeable reference records between the four of you guys?
Going into it, we always want to maintain that kind of that rock and roll AC/DC vibe. So I think Highway to Hell always plays an important role. And then of course, there's the Venom and Motorhead. But I think on top of that, we had talked a lot about incorporating a little bit of this kind of cold black metal vibe, not necessarily sonically, but just kind of like contextually and just trying to kind of convey that in the songwriting. So there was definitely talk of Dissection and Dark Throne. Dark Throne came up a lot, I feel like. That was kind of the very loose foundation of what we had.
I think what I always heard with these guys was like, obviously, the aforementioned Venom and Motorhead, of course, but there was also something a lot deeper there. You know what I mean? And you can hear the black metal stuff. To me, it was always like, I always felt like they were a little bit Gorgoroth and, just some other shit, you know what I mean? But I really feel like when we went in there, the way that we kind of approached it was like, let's make this less frills, like not overtly distorted, not overly, compressed and produced, and no glazed donut kind of shit. Like, let's make this as raw and as real as possible. And if there were templates to work from, I think we would go back to, along with other things that Andy was saying, but Motorhead Bomber, like that was also a record that was like, I felt like, it's very live and you can hear the separation, and getting Chris Dugan, obviously, who works with, Green Day and Charger and so many other great bands. I think at the end of the day, what we got was, I think it's better than Motorhead's Bomber. I think it's better than Venom. I think it's better than these bands that we've talked about. Maybe because I'm that close to it, but I also love this band, and I wouldn't be working with them if I didn't, Mm-hmm. So I feel like they sort of outshined, I feel like whatever we went in there thinking we could get, what we came out of there with, it's the best record I've ever produced in my entire life. And I've produced a lot of really great fucking records. So, I mean, for me to say that is something. And I just think they outshined themselves. They outdid themselves.
You hear that, boys?
That's our coach, man. That's Coach Lars right there. That's Coach Lars.
Over here.
Oh my God.
God damn.
Yeah,
You know what? I should have fucking wore my whistle. You guys gave me the
Yeah,
whistle.
you
I
should
should
have, dude. Oh, where's your clipboard? Coach? Come on, man.
So tell me about this. Tell me about this, like, Coach Lars concept, because you guys had mentioned it to me, and I see you keep writing about it on the internet. It's what Kiss used to say about Bob Ezrin when they went in to do Destroyer. Was like it was going to rock and roll school. Tell me about Coach Lars. I want to know.
He just had that, like, patchy on the ass attitude. Like, there was never any, like, disparaging things. It was always, everything was very encouraging, and, like, you can do it. And, like, if we got to a point where something was shifting or something needed to change, or there was a suggestion to change something, he was just very encouraging. And it was half the first day. We're like, let's start calling this guy Coach, because he's helping us fight. He's helping us win,
I think more importantly than that too, man, like, he really challenged us. It wasn't like, just like go in there and do it, or like, this isn't good enough, I think you can do it again. It was more like, I'm going to put these guys in a situation that, requires them to use every ounce of whatever skill they have.
I wanted to ask about some of the tone elements of it, because the guitar tone fucks. Obviously, that's a big mutual thing. I mean, Dugan mixing and engineering, Lars producing, the band itself with you bring forward your gear and what you want to use. What was kind of the main basis for heads and treatment on the guitar tone, and how did we get there? I'm really interested in that, because it's the best representation of Bewitcher guitar tone we've heard to date.
Basically, the mentality going in was, so I've always kind of mixed a little bit of modern and a little bit of old school with it, vintage, whatever you want to call it. So we usually do like a mix of like a blend of a Marshall head and some kind of like a EVH or 5150 kind of tone. This time Lars was like, hey man, I want to go in and I want to just do Marshalls. I want to just go with that Marshall sound. We want to get that authentic sound. And like I said, it was a bit of a challenge, because I usually go with a higher gain kind of sound, and just to get the riffs sounding the way I wanted to sound. It felt like he needed more, but he's like, no, you got this. This is going to be perfect. This is going to work so well. And that's going in with that mentality got us this tone that just, like you said, it's the best representation of what I've always, tried to get in the studio.
Well, I think that, I'm going to just talk really positive about your guitar playing. You're one of those guys that is only going to sound like you. So, listening to the other records and hearing like what you guys have done, and, you could hear that there was this certain thing. So the idea of coming back and kind of stripping it down a little bit, everything, your whole tone is right here, right? As guitar players, it's in our hands. It's how we pick. It's how we press down on the neck, Jimi Hendrix is only going to sound like Jimi Hendrix. Ace Frehley is only going to sound like Ace Frehley. Matt's only going to sound like Matt, right? So it's like, to take away anything that would sort of hide what's in his hands, I just thought that would be the raddest place to be, because then you know exactly what you're dealing with. We both would. To make this record, everybody had to be in a place, we had to all be open-minded to each other's suggestions, to each other's thoughts, and each other's process. You know what I mean? So it's like, also you're talking about all new personalities, right? Me being being Dugan, being the sort of the new personalities in there, and then bringing these new ideas. So I think that the whole concept of the record and what it became and what it got shaped to be started from a very primitive spot, I would say, if that's fair to say. Like we did, sure. There wasn't a lot of shit on a lot of shit. You know what I mean? That all came later, and it was I think everybody wanted to approach it was to do it as tasteful as possible. So it's not like you're starting with a bunch of fucking reverb or a bunch of this or a bunch of that, and then you have to kind of scale back. This started from a very like pure kind of like not stock, I wouldn't call it that, but a very raw place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's funny, you can spend so much time blending 4 different heads and into different cabs and swapping speakers and different mics and positions. You could do all the bullshit in the world, but at the end of the day, sometimes plugging a bunch of fucking Marshalls into 1960 cabs is just what's going to sound the best and the most real and have the spirit of rock and roll in it.
That's one of the worst parts about music today is people overthink it. You know what I mean? Or they just get lazy with it. And you're never, ever going to substitute a Marshall cabinet and the air that it's pushing and cranking that fucker up and the realness of that. Like you can put, I know a lot of people like to put it on a little box because it's either easier to travel with. And I get all that. And that's totally fine. I never would fucking do it. I would never go into in-ear monitors. That's fucking stupid to me. Like I need to hear that shit. And that's what these guys are. So it's like, it was an easy connection because we're all the same kind of types of people. And we're the same kinds of musicians too, and we approach the music in the same fashion.
I want to talk about some of the music on the record. Of course, we've got a lot of Bewitcher doing Bewitcher at a higher level. No diehard fan is going to be disappointed with the sound you brought because it has a lot of what people love. What your band is rooted in, a lot of the speed, a lot of the darkness. All of that. But I thought that there were a couple cool curveballs or new vibes in there that I kind of wanted to talk about and see how they sort of came to life. Standout track for me, I think it's the bona fide black and roll track of the album. It's moody, it's mid-tempo, and it's stompy. It's We Die in Dust. I really like that main section, that main riff, before the fast shit. Where is that born? What is that song all about?
A weird riff for me because it was one that I was not 100% convinced was going to be a Bewitcher song. You know what I mean? It just it has that. It's not even that it's a mid-tempo thing or anything. It's just I think it's a little melodic almost for the, or I should say melancholic actually. Like sonically, it just feels like a little sad. And we don't do sad. We usually do pissy or angry or whatever. It's like we're a snotty band. We're not a sad boy band. So. But I think when you combined it with the middle section of, where it gets a little more, punk and a little more, up tempo, it told a story, I think. And the lyrics are definitely a bit of a story too. So that's kind of why it ended up being what it was. Because it was like a combination of different things coming together to create something that wasn't Bewitcher on its, separately, but together it was.
It's really interesting that a lot of people seem to be latching onto that song because when we released our last record, everybody was giving us a ream of shit because things weren't fast enough. And now the slowest song on the record, everybody's like, dude, that's the best song on the record. So it's awesome. I'm glad people like it, but it's a head scratcher. You can't please these people.
I mean, it's the fade to black curse, man. It's fucking.
I guess so.
Absolutely.
Can't please them in the moment, but it ends up becoming one of your biggest hits ever. It's just like the way it goes. So fuck.
Yeah, you never know what's going to be iconic and what isn't.
People also don't know what they want, so fuck them. Just keep doing you.
Right.
Just fuck people. Fuck people.
That's it.
Like, listen to the Anti-Knower League. I hate people and they hate me.
I think too, another thing I wanted to comment on, and especially Lars, with the punk world connection, I think that we can all agree that the gang vocals and the chants on this record are fucking on point. Specifically, that vocalized gang intro on Out Against the Law. That shit is fucking awesome.
Well, but that's another thing that I think
the keys.
That in metal, like it's not really, sort of, I feel like that element is something that's not really used or overtly used. And so when it does happen, it makes an impact. Obviously you heard it. So
yeah.
I think it was one of the things with the backgrounds was to kind of keep it real simple and, because Matt is such, vocally is on a different level. So you don't really need to really back him up all that much, but when you do, it should be tasteful and it should be relevant, to what's going on, if that makes sense.
I think there's also something to be said about, a bit of the lost art in metal of getting a bunch of friends together in the studio for an afternoon and doing gangs. I know that anytime I've been tapped to do gangs for an album and I've been honored to do so, it's always for a hardcore band or a punk band. It's never metal bands. Metal bands, it's like, yeah, the gangs was the guitar player, the bassist, and the engineer. Like, that's it. Like, there was no homies involved on the record. And I think that's a big part of the experience is getting your homies involved.
Mm-hmm. It ripped, man. And those gangs on Out Against the Law were kind of planned ahead of time, but there was other songs where Lars threw in gangs where we weren't expecting them to be. And it actually added, more of that punk energy and just more of that, it was like more of a masculine, just kind of vibe to all these songs that didn't necessarily have that in mind. So it's just, I love that when I listen to them now, I love when those came in. When they come in, they're just so they just add so much to the song.
Well, I was going to ask about another one, too, the Seasons on Seasons of Foul Harvest. I mean, that's one of them. A noticeably different style of gang as well. It's like you had a different ensemble for that one doing it. I want to talk about the choice to use the instrumental as, the lead into the final track instead of right off the top. I also want to talk about Ride of the Iron Fox, specifically not just being an epic closer, but we resurrected Cliff Burton to do that outro bass playing. What's kind of just give me the whole kind of story and vibe on that, please.
So Pagan Shadows it was just like this little lick that I had for a long time. And I ended up sort of developing, I was able to turn it into something a little more, more like an instrumental. And it just fit at the end of the album instead of the beginning this time. I think Ashe was just, it needed to be the introduction to that record on Curse Me
Ashe, not Ash, Ashe.
Ashe, yes.
Yeah, I fucked that up.
No, you're fine. I think
it's French.
Ash. It's oh, français, mon frère. Yeah, so I think it just it just fit, and it needed that. I think Iron Fox just needed like a jumping off point, and the way those two kind of smashed together is pretty cool.
And it's cool. It's like an intro to the longest song on the record as well. It's like, let's just fucking really hammer this one home. It's a great way to end a record. Tell me about that outro, man.
That was something I've been fucking around with forever, and I can't remember. It was such a spur of the moment. Like, if I remember right, Lars just kind of was like, "Just something, give me something right here, just play it." And so so I was like, "All right." So I just started playing, and he's like, "Okay, keep going, keep going." And I kind of wanted to have it like really well written out, have this whole movement, and it was literally just like one take. It was like everyone was just like, "That's it, done," and and basically, yeah, it was like we just kind of floated it in at the end. Like, let's just land right in that little thing and just kind of take us out, and it kind of sends it off nicely. It was totally unplanned. It just happened.
But it wasn't specifically played for that either. It was Lars just being like, "Hey, play something, Andy," and then like a week or so later, he's like, "Hey, what about that bass thing? Let's put it at the end."
Yeah,
and that's what happened.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a beautiful mistake or whatever it is that takes the song into a whole different level, you know.
Lars, do you have a standout moment on this album that for you, like, you know, when you listen to it now or when they first came in and played it, you're like, "Oh, fuck yeah, this is it."
Oh man. I mean, see, that's the thing. Every one of the songs on the record, what we started with and where we ended is completely like it's topsy-turvy, right? It's like, oh shit, I knew this was going to be good. I just didn't think it was going to be this good kind of thing. And I think it's a testament to these three because they really worked hard. Every one of them, I feel like, put their A game to the test and they fucking succeeded. I mean, Eris is such a great player and did the stamina, and Andy had so many great ideas. And obviously, you know, Matt coming in and just ripping. I mean, you know, I don't necessarily know if we could do this for any longer and me not give any more compliments to the three because they're really talented dudes. And, you know, the lyrical content is incredible. I feel like, you know, we all had some sort of connection with that as well. But yeah, I mean, every single track has something. To me, Fox will be, I feel like, one of the greatest songs ever. So I think it's just that it's a perfect song from start to finish to me.
Dude, this guy fucking loves y'all, man.
I still trip on it, man.
He's out of his mind, dude. He's out of his mind.
Can you tell us any a silly story from the studio? We got all four of you here. Literally, the four of you guys spent 2 weeks together. Tell me something silly that went on in that room.
Every second was silly, man.
You're a silly guy.
Silly idiots. I am a silly guy. That's very true. I mean, Lars is a world-class ball buster. We found that out in like 3 hours. So, like, it was nonstop. It was just nonstop silliness.
I think my favorite was you guys are out smoking, getting ready to record, and you walked in the studio, and Lars goes, "Oh, there's Cheech and Chong."
So what about the? I don't even know what that instrument was. When you guys made me take that shaker all around the studio.
Yeah, so he had some sort of shaker, and so I'd be like, "Okay, can you get behind?" And then, "Okay, now squat down. Now do it."
Yeah.
Like, so I had
do
him
it on
doing all
one
these.
foot now.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah.
Now go touch that wall and put your leg in the air.
I didn't even do it.
I did it. Well, I tell you, yeah.
He didn't even catch on. It was like it could have kept going.
It's amazing to hear that the process was not only fun and silly, but we got a lot of serious fucking work done, and the end result is an incredible record. Spell Shock fucking rules. Definitely my favorite Bewitcher record to date. Next time you go to a Rancid show, make sure you bring your Bewitcher records to get signed by Lars. That's what you got to do.
I'll fucking frisbee. I'll frisbee those motherfuckers back at me, man.
There you go. Inception. Matt's on Andy's cam now. Yeah.
Wait, what
His phone
happened?
died. So.
Nobody wants to come in the bathroom with me. The guy with this clause in here.
Hey,
Gotta go that way.
I kind of feel that Eris has already had a few visitors in there.
I saw that.
Yeah. Did you hear the streams of piss and hand washing, dude? See?
Hey! Bringing it full circle. Now we're all going to appear in Lars's living room right now.
That'd be sick if you guys could come in here, man. Help me clean up the joint. The kids just left.
Guys, fucking the dudes from Bewitcher, Andy, Eris, and Matt, Lars Frederiksen, Spell Shock. Listen to it, buy it, fucking stream it, buy copies for all your friends. More good shit coming soon. We'll catch you then.